Hello there. My name is Hollie Benincosa, and I am the Executive Director with the QABA Credentialing Board. I want to welcome you to my presentation of the QABA Credentialing Board strengthening the quality of ABA service delivery through international certification. It is a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to sharing some information with you about QABA and our certifications. So QABA is a US-based company. We originated in 2012, and in the beginning, it was really only California who used our certifications. Since then, we have grown into, let's see, we now have 38 countries, I believe, that have certifications with QABA. So, what are QABA's international certifications? QABA has certifications that are parallel to the BACB. We are the only internationally accredited certification board to offer these credentials for behavior analysts, the assistant behavior analyst, and behavior technicians. All three of these exams and certifications are internationally accredited by ANSI. So we do have the QBA, which is the Qualified Behavior Analyst. This is the independent practitioner that's parallel to the BACB. The QBA has knowledge, skills, and abilities in competency and professionals who provide therapeutic intervention for individuals with autism spectrum disorder and related disabilities. They are the overall supervisor. They provide supervision for the QASPS or QASP-S and the ABAT. The Qualified Autism Service Practitioner Supervisor, which is the QASPS or QASPS, is our Assistant Behavior Analyst. This is parallel to the BCABA. And, they oversee the ABAT, the entry-level technician, while also maintaining supervision from a QBA or valid supervisor. The Applied Behavior Analysis Technician, or the ABAT, is the behavior technician. This is parallel to the RBT, and this is our entry-level technician credential. This is for people who may have just started in the field, people who are recent high school graduate students who are interested in the field of ABA. And as I mentioned, both the QASPS and ABAT work under the oversight of a QBA or valid supervisor. So let's get into the Qualified Behavior Analyst, the QBA. So they must be 18 years old. They must possess a minimum of a master's degree or higher. And this degree must be from an accredited university for higher education. This is not just a coursework provider, but this has to be a university. They must complete 270 hours of approved coursework. This coursework may be done by an approved provider or a university. However, they still must have a master's degree or higher from an accredited university for higher education. They must have 1,500 hours of supervised field work. The minimum would be 900 hours in the role of a supervisor or program development, and up to 600 hours may be done as direct care. They actually do not need to have 600 hours, but they may have up to 600 hours of direct care. They must have a recommendation, and the recommendation needs to include that they are qualified to work with individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and related disabilities. They must complete a criminal background check by local police or court magistrate. They may also have a background attestation form that is completed by their employer, which confirms that they've been cleared of a background check and have no problems with the law or legal system. They must pass the accredited QBA exam that is proctored by Examity. They also have to agree to the QABA Code of Ethics and the renewal requirements, and we can go over those in a little bit. All eligibility criteria will be reviewed by the board to formalize credentialing. And then once you're certified as a QBA, you will be put on the public registry. This means that anyone in the world can enter your name and see that you have been certified as a QBA, and also find your certificate number and the country that you reside in. The certification is renewed every 2 years. You do not need to take the exam again. However, in order to renew your certification, you must maintain your certification by completing 32 hours of CEUs, and that is on a 2-year basis. And then once you're certified as a QBA, you are considered an independent practitioner. Now, the QASPS is a little bit different. This is our assistant level, must be 18 years old, and this degree must be a minimum of a bachelor's degree or higher, and it must be from an accredited university for higher education. Now, just like the QBA, you must have a bachelor's degree or higher from an accredited university, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in ABA. So you can have a bachelor's degree in psychology and then complete the rest of the 188 hours of approved coursework from a pre-approved provider. The training for this coursework and supervised fieldwork must be done by a QBA or BCBA. Somebody who is a QASPS may not supervise someone who's becoming a QASPS. It always has to be the higher level that is supervising a lower level. It can never be the same unless it's a QBA. A QBA who has been certified may provide supervision to a QBA candidate. The QASPS requires 1,000 hours of supervised field work before certification, and this is at 5%. They also have to have a recommendation from their supervisor. And there's also a criminal background check that's conducted by local police or court magistrate, or even an employer who can attest that you have a clear background check on your behalf. You must pass the exam that is proctored by Examity. And then you must agree to the Code of Ethics and the renewal requirements. Now, just like the QBA, the QASPS or QASPS has a renewal every 2 years and requires 20 CEUs to maintain certification. And then the final review of eligibility will be completed by the QABA board before formal credentialing. And then you'll also be placed on the public registry like the QBA. And there you can see the renewal is every 2 years with 20 CEUs. The QASPS requires continued supervision even after certification because this is our assistant level. And so they must continue to have that oversight from a QBA or a valid supervisor. It is 5% supervision. However, if once the QASPS is certified and their supervisor deem it acceptable that the QASPS is doing very well with their required scope, they may choose to decrease the QASPS's supervision to 2% instead of 5%. And then we have the entry level credential, which is the Applied Behavior Analysis Technician. This is the ABAT. And the ABAT is the one who performs 90% of the direct services to the client, the one-to-one direct care. They must be at least 18 years old, have a high school diploma or the equivalent. They must have completed 40 hours of approved coursework. Now, this may be done by an approved provider. We have a lot of pre-approved providers who offer the ABAT. And then training should be completed within 5 years of this coursework. So you must have the coursework and the field work completed within 5 years and take the exam. And of course, the training should be developed or delivered by an approved supervisor. Something that sets the ABAT apart from the RBT is that the ABAT requires supervised field work. This is putting your knowledge and your coursework into practice. And, you know, with that 5% supervision, your supervisor can assess how well you're doing in the field before you are certified. And of course, we require a recommendation from your supervisor and a criminal background check or an attestation letter from your employer. Then you must complete and pass the exam, the ABAT exam, that's also remotely proctored by Examity. Agree to the code of ethics and the renewal requirements. And then of course the board will review eligibility. You'll be placed on the public registry. Now, something else that sets the ABAT apart from the RBT is that the ABAT to maintain certification requires CEUs. I know that's a little different, but QABA feels it's important that ABATs, the ones that are working directly with the client, have that continued education. They continue to learn. They continue to build their portfolio. And their renewals actually every 2 years instead of 1 year. And they require 12 CEUs within that 2-period time. And of course, the ABAT does require continued supervision to maintain their certification. They require 5% supervision every 90 days to maintain their certification. So what's included in the competency standards? We have autism core knowledge, and the reason why QABA includes autism is because autism is the main source of ABA services. Most providers use ABA with individuals with autism. It makes up at least 70% of those certified, and it is about probably 90 to 95% of ABA services is used towards autism. We feel it's important that you know who you work with. The second standard would be the legal, ethical, and professional considerations. Now, why is this important? Because we need to make sure that we keep privacy laws in place. If there's no privacy laws, then we have to have guidelines to keep people's personal diagnoses, personal plans, individual assessments private. This is only for the family. This isn't public information. And so it's important that we use that. With these considerations, we do include cultural sensitivities. You know, what may be unacceptable for one culture is acceptable by another culture. And so it's important to consider those. We also, of course, have core principles of ABA. ABA foundations is about 95% of the exam, and 5% would be geared towards autism or related disabilities. We also have antecedent interventions, skill acquisition programming, behavior reduction interventions, data collection and analysis. Now, all 3 of our certifications include these competencies. However, Once you get to the QASPS and the QBA, it'll include assessment as well as training and supervision, because these are going to be the higher level certificates that are helping create behavior plans and other trainings. So what is this coursework about? So QABA has used and kind of developed a refined competency. And this is based on some colleges and universities to determine, what should be included in the competency standard. Now, QABA uses subject matter experts in the field who have helped create the blueprint of our credentials and our exams. They assist in writing the job task analysis. They assist in writing the exam questions, the competency standards, and they also review the exam questions to confirm that they are reliable and valid. So subject matter experts are a very important part of QABA. And this is one of the reasons that we can meet high standards. So we do have a program that is for pre-approved coursework. And so what this is we've created a way to predetermine providers that qualify as coursework providers. Some may or may not be universities. This does not replace a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, but it provides another path for somebody who may have a degree that isn't necessarily in the field of ABA. So we do have a way for providers to become coursework and CE providers. So that way we can meet the demand of those who are looking for the coursework. So the examination process. So as I mentioned, we have subject matter experts that are the ones who actually created the content for the exam and the certifications. It is developed based on those competencies that the subject matter experts deemed important. So another thing is that QABA has developed a way to create exams that are accessible to most people. And that is why we offer remote proctoring through Examity. So Examity is our third-party proctoring service, and some of you may have already taken an exam and completed it through Examity. But one of the main reasons we do this is because we want to provide the highest quality of care and access to services everywhere around the globe. And so having an exam that can be remote proctored, where somebody doesn't have to spend money to travel to a different country to go to a Pearson VUE testing center, makes it more accessible to professionals in the field, which therefore leads to more access to quality care. And so our exams all three of them are available online through remote proctoring. So as long as you can have reliable internet and you're alone in the room, you can take the exam anywhere in the world. And the nice thing is that these exams are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can take it Christmas Day if you wanted to, or, Christmas Eve at 1 o'clock in the morning. Anytime you want to take the exam, it'll be available. And for all three levels, as soon as you submit your exam, you will know your score as soon as you submit it. So you know whether you passed or failed right away. There's no waiting period for that. So what is this ANSI accreditation? What is ANSI? So ANSI is the American National Standards Institute. This is the highest accreditation you can get in the US. And why is that important? Because it also meets international standards. And so our accreditation meets what's called the ISO 17024 standards, and that is the highest accreditation that you can get. ANSI is also a member of the IAF, which is the International Accreditation Forum. So those of you that may be familiar with accreditation recognize IAF. It is a very comprehensive and strenuous process, and it just confirms that we are meeting the highest standards, and that our policies also meet the standards. And every single year, we go through an annual surveillance or an audit to confirm that we continue meeting those standards. That annual surveillance is also very comprehensive and pretty strenuous as well. It's, it includes almost all the same things as the initial accrediting application. So it's very, very involved and takes quite a while. So why is accreditation important? What's the point of having ANSI? It basically, it protects the integrity of QABA certifications. It provides a higher level of confidence and a higher level of certifications. And it's also legally defensible. So if you have a certification that has an ANSI accredited logo behind it, you can feel confident that you have taken the highest accredited certification body exam for ABA. And like I said, it also meets international standards, and it ensures that your certifying body continues to meet those standards. And so it's something, I feel like it's something to brag about. I am very proud to continue having an ANSI accreditation, even when we pass our audit every single year and we renew our accreditation. It's very exciting for me to continue that. ANSI is the golden standard for accreditation. So you can see here, this is the hierarchy. So you have the International Organizational Standards, the ISO, and they oversee ANSI, the ANSI, which oversees ICE, which then oversees NCCA. So you can see that ANSI is a higher accreditation than the NCCA. Now, the NCCA accredits certifying bodies such as the BACB. So you can see that ANSI is much more difficult to obtain and to continue to maintain. So talking internationally, so in 2013 is when QABA started to certify outside the United States. Now in 2013, you can see we only had 4 certificants outside the United States. So very, very new for us, certifying candidates outside the US. But in January 2020, after the BACB had decided that they're going to exit the international place, QABA created this International Standards Committee. And so this committee includes subject matter experts from all over the world. We have many people who continue to ask to join this committee, but they have been detrimental in helping QABA overcome obstacles around the world. They help us, overcome obstacles that may be in their own communities, in their own countries. And we work with the committee to overcome solutions. How can we work together to figure this out? We also have subcommittees that the International Standards Committee has kind of created. So these are various subcommittees like research and publication, the international consortium, so like training and coursework, and then events and media. And then many of our International Standards Committee members actually have become not only certified themselves, but have also become coursework providers or CE providers, which has helped meet the demand of so many people that are in need of this coursework and, having options to maintain their certifications. See, and they also, as I mentioned before, they helped us revise the code of ethics. It's so important to have a code of ethics that is culturally sound, because as I mentioned before, what may be unacceptable in one country is acceptable in another country. So, for example, somebody who is, and this even goes for just in the US too, there's so many different cultures in the US as well, as I'm sure there are many different cultures in your country. And so understanding some of these cultures and understanding what may be insulting, we've included these cultural sensitivities. So for instance, when I was practicing and I would go to a house where, you would have to remove your shoes before going in. That was their culture. In my house, I do remove my shoes just to keep it from being, dirty, tracking in mud or snow or whatever. But in some of these cultures, it's part of their culture to remove your shoes before coming in. It's part of their culture to accept a gift. It could be an insult if you decide that, you don't want to accept a baked good from a parent. You know, we don't want to insult these families. And so understanding that there are cultural sensitivities is so important because that way you can build a better rapport with not only your client or your child that you're working with, but with their parents. It's that mutual respect that, can help you get even further in providing services and, help build that confidence from the parent. And so it's so important. So by 2022, new international certifications made up 24% of all certifications. So you can see in the graph here, in 2016, we actually didn't have any new international certifications. Same with 2017. They were all US based. And then in 2018, we started seeing a little bit of international folks, it went to just a 0.25%, which really isn't much. Then it kind of dipped down in 2019. But then by 2020, we increased to almost 10% of all new certifications being international. And then in 2021, it went to 7.79%. And then by the year 2022, we saw a huge jump, more than triple the amount from 2021, from 7.79% to 24%. And so you can see that as QABA grows, we are growing into the international space instead of just US base. And the reason why, aside from the BACB closing their doors, is because QABA is not only internationally accredited, but we're also more inclusive. And so we have certificates and candidates who have completed coursework for this other certification who have not been able to complete it or take the exam due to expiration dates. And so what they've done is they've actually come over to QABA using that previous coursework and using that previous supervision hours and applying it to QABA certifications. Something else that sets us apart is that we also include valid supervisors to be not only QBAs, but also BCBAs, licensed psychologists that are in the scope of field of ABA. These are valid supervisors. If you're a licensed behavior analyst, you may become a supervisor for QABA. And so the fact that we are so inclusive has helped the growth, has helped meet the demand. So here's kind of a graph where you can see the international certifications. And like I said, these are all new certificates. And so you can see that the US is the yellow, and then the green is international. And so you can see that they're getting closer together to be, more even, so that it's not just a US company. We are an international company. And QABA's goal is to provide quality services and access to care to everyone around the world. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, it doesn't matter who you are, you know. Autism and other developmental disabilities affects everyone, and ABA is scientifically based, and there's evidence showing that ABA does wonders for this population. So QABA now has certificates in 38 countries, which is so exciting. So you can see here's some of the countries that are included. So like I said, 24% of our certificates are now international, which is a quarter of all certifications in QABA. And so we have, these are alphabetized, and I don't believe it's all inclusive, but you can see all of these different countries that have QABA certifications. I need to get that slide that also shows like how many Brazil has, because I believe Brazil is actually in like the top, I want to say Brazil's in the top 3 of certifications. Um, it's like the 3rd highest country that is certified with QABA certificates. So very impressive. Something else that's exciting is that QABA exams, we offer them in different languages, and we continue to try to meet the need of the demand of different languages. So right now we have our ABAT, our entry level exam, in English, Japanese, and Spanish. The QASPS exam is in English, Portuguese, and Arabic. And I know we've had many people take the Portuguese QASPS, so congratulations to those who have passed the QBA in Portuguese. I'm sorry, the QASPS in Portuguese. And then the QBA exam is now in English, Korean, and Spanish. And I know that we have a couple of people that have passed the Spanish QBA exam. And we've actually had many Korean QBAs be certified too, which is so exciting. And coming soon, we'll have the QBA in Portuguese. We are also working on getting the QBA in Arabic as well. So it's really exciting. Basically, where we find a need, we try to meet that. We want to make sure that if there are countries who are ready for the exam, people who continue to ask us to get these languages for their exam so that they can become certified, we will meet that need. And so the process of these exams and translating them is getting subject matter experts who are already certified. So for instance, if it's translating the QBA exam, we have subject matter experts who are fluent in both English and the language, and they have to be certified at the QBA level. So they would have had to pass the QBA exam or the BCBA exam, in order to participate on these translation committees. And no one person will have the whole entire exam, and that's for security reasons. So basically, we would take the amount of questions of the exam and divide it by committee members, and they would go ahead and translate their questions into the given language. We would also come back together and see like what kind of neutral terms should we be using. So like a glossary of terms. So, for instance, there may be somebody who uses the word client and somebody else that uses child or somebody using student. So, what's the most neutral term in that language? Because there's also different dialects in these languages. What's the most neutral term that we can use to make it so that anybody taking this exam in this language understands what we're talking about? And then once we have that all completed, then it's back translated into English just to make sure the translation looks correct. And so it's a process that's done with subject matter experts, and I feel that's important to mention because these aren't just some random people who are fluent in the languages, but they actually are professionals in the field that are translating it. So they understand the terms, they understand the concepts. And so I feel like that's pretty important to make sure you have. So, in summary, I just wanted to say that QABA credentials address the needs, um, and it recognizes individuals with specific education in ABA. We are not an autism certification. We are behavior analysts first, but we do require about 5% of our competencies to be in autism because we feel that it's so important to understand who it is you're working with, since most people are using ABA with individuals with autism or related disabilities. QABA is also ANSI accredited, making it the only internationally accredited certifying body for ABA certifications. And having that accreditation is so important. It sets us apart, having the highest standards and helping professionals feel confident in their certifications and to be able to have their parents and families have confidence in you as well, knowing that you have that high standard of uh, education and certification. And, QABA strengthens the quality of ABA services throughout the world with this ANSI international accreditation. And so I hope you have learned something today about QABA. I know I kind of went pretty fast. I know it's a lot of information. And, after you digest this a little bit, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. You can contact us at info@qababoard.com. You can also visit our website. You can visit us at qababoard.com. And there's also a contact form in there if you should need it. So I hope that you learned something today. And like I said, if you have any questions, please let us know. We are happy to help however we can. We pride ourselves on customer service. So thank you for your time. And I will turn it over for any questions.